Greetings, boars and ghouls, and good morning. This is Dr. Von Mad, and I'm about to work on another dinosaur. I'm not sure exactly what yet. Though, I mean, I've been thinking, I keep leaning back towards steg, but I've done so many stegs. So, we're trying to figure out what we're going to be making. A trike, maybe? I have not ever made a Triceratops except as a necklace. Well, we'll go with that then. Ring off because I don't want to get into the clay. I'll tear off some of this because we're going to be needing some of this, but we're going to be working on the body first. So, as you can see, my table's a little crowded. I've been trying to figure out I was going to do a painting, but really not feeling painting today. But I want to get some art done, so we're going to do some sculpting. So, I was going to do, like I said, I was thinking about a steg, but I think I've got something else in mind. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull off his tail. Now, remember, trikes, it really didn't have very long tails. We're not going to give this one a very long one anyway. So the first thing we're going to do is kind of lengthen his body out a little bit. Give him a bit of a tail. There's been some argument over whether he had some quills up there, like some of the fossils they found of Psittacosaurus, I believe, in China. Ours isn't going to have quills. Just simply because I didn't grow up with them with quills, and I'm not giving them quills. They may have had them. Who knows? In all seriousness, all jokes aside. But they're not going to have them here because I don't feel like putting them on. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on building our trike. Now remember, the Triceratops had a huge head. So we're going to try to use as much clay on this body as possible because I don't want to have to try to figure out how to deal with the head. With the Triceratops' gigantic skull, he had a big old head on him. So I got to figure out how to make him. So we'll see if we can even do this. May have to use some of this one's leg to make this one kind of even it up. Then we'll have to smooth out all this extra clay. Now like I said, the great thing about Sculpey as opposed to like Marblex, they both have their place when you're doing art, but Sculpey is in some ways much better in the fact that may have too much tail on him, so we're going to cut off some of that tail. See if we can work this in. Right now it looks awful, but we'll hopefully whip him into shape with anything resembling luck. So, got him sort of where I want him, but his tail's just kind of weird looking. There we go. Now, kind of, his body doesn't really kind of just suddenly abruptly turn like that, so we gotta tinker with that. And his legs were definitely up underneath him and not splayed out, so we're that much ahead. So we need to kind of inch in around the legs here to kind of give him some proper hips and stuff. I might have to give him a little more because I suspect that he's looking a tad underfed here. The great thing about this stuff is if my hands get tired, and they frequently do. Now the body I think looks halfway right, but we're going to come in underneath here and see if we can do a little bit of sculpting. You notice I haven't picked up a single tool yet. That's because we're still shaping him out. So, but we will be getting to tooling. So, Don't want him being pigeon-toed. He was really not. No. But I do want his legs kind of moving forward, so I do want him kind of a little bit like so. And I want this leg pulled back just a hair. I want it to look like he's maybe moving, because if he's just standing still, he's not going to be all that exciting. Now, kind of arch that into place, and now we'll pull this out, because he does have a little bit of a neck. Doesn't have a whole lot, but he does have some neck. Alright guys, that was our regularly scheduled battery failure. Brought to you by Durafell. Now, I'm going to use a little bit of this because I still have way too much for his head. So I want to make him a bit of a... He's got to have some leg muscle. Because Trike was actually... He had pretty good strong legs. These dinosaurs lived in North America. Most famous in the movies for fighting Tyrannosaurus, even though probably while they did occasionally run into each other and you see evidence of that, probably not as common as you would think. Now, I am going to bring in the first tool of the day here, this little dull thing right here, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, kind of, and that's going to help me to get a little bit of a, see how that kind of worked out really well. So I do want him to look like he's maybe got some girth up underneath him, and we're going to use this to kind of whittle this down just a hair. I don't want a whole bunch of this sticking out, so he shouldn't have this big a membrane coming out here. Maybe a little bit, but not a whole lot. Now, so let's go over here on this side and we'll do the same thing over here. See if I can get this smoothed out. You got to remember, these big old heavy tree trunk legs are what propelled him forward. Now, probably they're a lot lighter than what I'm depicting, but still, to support the weight of a Triceratops, it would have to be, they'd have to be fairly sturdy legs. So, now, we'll work on the head. The head's going to be the fun part because the head was huge on a Triceratops. So, first thing we're going to do is seal this onto the head. And I know that looks awful big, but trust me, we will use every last bit of it and probably then some. Now, so let's see here. I'll bring back some of this back here and kind of build a frill. Now, I could have just carved it off the head, but I kind of needed the head out of the way while I was working. So there's that. I don't want to make this frill too thin, but it does need to be where I can get into it here. So that's pretty good. Now we're going to see if we can take a little bit of extra clay and kind of even this up around the edges and smooth that in. There we go. Now bring down the beak. The trike had a really odd shaped head, and this is looking more like a Protoceratops at this point. But I need to bring his head down because he had a kind of a, it's a little bit big. Cut some of his nose off here. So We need to kind of shrink him. The head, maybe I had too much clay up there. Now, he had a wee bit of a beak, which he probably used to snip things off. Now, starting to look like a Triceratops. So let's go ahead and put, I don't want to get the horns on there yet because I still got to do a little bit of detail up here around the eyes and kind of work this in. See, it's a little bit uneven. You can see it from the top side pretty good. So we're going to add a little bit more clay and kind of bring this frill around to kind of even him up. And that looks a little more even. Now, I'll have to got a bit of a crack right there, and I don't want it. The molding line is still there, and it's being a bit of a nuisance. But I don't want to make it too paper thin either. So, we'll see if we can maybe roll it down just a hair up on top. Kind of, it'll shrink it a little bit, but it needs done. He's proving to be a bit of a challenge, isn't he? Check on my timing. And sometime today we're going back to the art show and the academy, hopefully if they'll be open today. And there we go. Now let's go ahead and bring that down. There we go. Now, we've got the basic shape. Now we can come in here and do the kind of the jawline. It's going to be partly concealed. Now, let's go ahead and push that down to kind of give him a definitive brow. Get our tools here. We'll go with this. Let's see if we can do that. See if this is going to be too harsh a tool for this job. Always imagine Trike as being sort of like King Leonidas or something. So, I mean, he's hiding behind a spear and a shield every time you see him. Behind these three horns and this shield. Kind of get the idea that maybe that these guys were very, you know, they look like they should have been very aggressive. So, let's go ahead and see if we can get an eye on this side now. There's something that don't need to be there. So, let's go ahead and see if we can. I have to come in and put a little extra clay over the eye. And check the shape here and see if we can get this carved into place. My voice is getting a little hoarse. There we go. That looks pretty decent. Now let's go for the horns. And he had 3 of those. That's where he gets the name 3-horn face. And they were directly over the eye, facing forward. Now, we're going to go first with the horn on his nose, which was much shorter. And there seems to be some conjecture as to which direction it was facing. Some of them show these guys like, I believe they now consider it a dubious taxon, monoclonius, which had like a single horn. And there's like two different varieties of ceratopids. There's the ones like that, and then there's the chasmosaurs. And I believe the chasmosaur, if anybody knows their dinosaurs, maybe they can correct me if I am mistaken. It wouldn't be the first or the last that I had been so, even though I've studied them most of my life. Because when I was young, I wanted to be a paleontologist. Having gained some years and some wisdom, realized that I don't have the physicality to do that job. But I do have the ability to make art. And why not combine two of my favorite subjects? In this case, dinosaurs and art. And I do a lot of other things, but I like dinosaurs. I really do. So we're going to make some horns. We're going to mount those top side. I want to mount them because I want them to be kind of forward, and you kind of got to catch a little bit of Triceratops' aggression. Because, like I said, he just looks like he ought to just be the kind of attitude like, don't mess with me. You know, he'd be the, if he was a human, he'd be the kind of guy that kicks somebody off into a pit and yell, "This is Sparta." Always kind of picture these guys as being sort of their herds being almost like a military camp. And I like Triceratops. I really do. Even though I'm going to paint this one pink. Just because. Alright, let's do his horns, and then we can work on smoothing the body out and filling out any place I think needs it. Maybe giving him a little more muscle on his back and his legs. Or rounding him out in the stomach. Just whatever detail I think may be needed. I've got a little bit of clay left. Alright, let's put his horns into place now, and then we can work on the other details. So... Alright. We'll grab a softer tool to do this. That clay blade's making gashes, and I don't need gashes in this thing. The metal blade's good for some things, but when you're doing delicate work, you need something that's not gonna be abrasive to the clay, which is sort of important to not have happen. Now, we've about got him fleshed out where I want him. Now, granted, I will be coming in and doing a few more details and fixing some things as we go. Let's see, I want to smooth out around his horns. And he looks like he's got a little bit of a broken horn, so gives him a little character. Now, I'm going to get a little bit of this and kind of work on his... Okay, we got 5 minutes left on the video. And we're going to add a little bit of clay just above the brow. Just to kind of hint at his, you know... Get a different tool. I need a scooper here. No, that's a texturing tool. We don't need a texturing tool. Ah, yeah, there we are. So I'll have to come in and smooth his horns out. I may have put a little bit too much, but we'll smooth it in. actually looks pretty good. Now, I'm going to come in on this side and do the same thing. Just a little bit of clay over the brow. I don't want to interfere with the horns, but probably should have done that before I put in the horns, but hindsight's 20/20. There we go. Smooth this down just a hair. Now for this, we can go back to this tool, because I'm not going to be cutting, I'm just going to be smoothing. I just don't want a bunch of gashes into something when I'm cutting on it. Now, come over here. Let's kind of reiterate what we did with the eye. It's got some rather deep set eyes. It looks like he means business. Alright, now, need a pointy tool. Now where's my, I want to use the soft pointer, not the hard one. So, it's going with the plastic. We'll kind of make him a little nostril right in here. Okay. We're going to come up here. His back leg still looks a little weak, so I'm going to see if I can maybe add a little bit to it to kind of strengthen up the back legs, because I want his back legs to look solid. He needs to look like he's got some power behind him. And it doesn't go all the way up to his hip like it's supposed to. So... kind of smooth out around this frill. There's a little bit of knocking around, rough places around this frill. I don't like that. That looks better on this side. Let's check him out over here. That don't look too bad. Now, I'm going to add him a little bit of a pot gut. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of this clay here and just kind of smush it down and kind of set it in right in here between the legs here, between the front and back legs. Clean off this tool. Come in and just kind of seal this in. Kind of give him the illusion of having a bit of a pot belly. I mean, they were plant eaters, and plant eaters need a lot bigger digestive mechanisms than their carnivorous counterparts. Something like a T-Rex honestly would have been lean and mean, but something like a trike over here, he's going to need like chambers to either ferment or have like a gizzard or something to kind of grind up the meat or grind up the vegetables he's eating. So now that I like that. Now let's go in with this tool here and kind of smooth out where I cut the gash on this thing. There we go. Feels good to be sculpting again. Kind of get rid of that. There's a bit of a crack right there and I don't like it. Alright, let's turn him around and let's see how this looks now. He probably will have a little bit of a pooch right there between his. He'll have a little bit of pudge coming out here between the between his shoulder and his hip on this side where the two legs are coming together. But it won't be the same size or anything like that on this side. So what we're going to do is just kind of smooth it in and then we'll have to do his toes. Kind of give him a little bit of wrinkling up around here. So far, so good. Let's go ahead and put his mouth on him. Remember, he's got a beak, so it's going to come out from underneath. So what we're going to do is kind of do this. Grab a different blade to smooth this down because I don't want anything quite so jaggedy looking. And that looks good. Come around. Let's do it again. Come in with this tool. Smooth off this. And that will work. Kind of come in now and define it with this tool here. There we go. So far, so good. Now let's go back and kind of seal off and take off this excess. It looks like he's just kind of angry at the world, and that's fine. Now, let's go ahead and put his toes on him. He's going to have a little bit of a backbone, but not a whole lot sticking out. Like I said, he's kind of pudgy. Being a plant eater, he would be. Now, that looks pretty good so far. Let's go ahead and make his toes. Now, toes, we're going to come in like this, and hopefully you can see. I'm not going to go over crazy with it. Let's see how many toes they've given him. He's got 4. He's going to have 4 little hooves, so it's kind of come in and just kind of do that. Now, they show him over here on this little model of having 4 sharp little hooves, but I don't know. I don't like that idea too well. So I'm just going to kind of give him kind of this blunt little hooves because I don't see him as having sharp hooves. Let's go over here and do the same thing on this side. Grab our tooling. In here, do the same thing. Just pinch these toes out just a hair. Actually, that looks pretty good as it is. Alright, we're going to come around over here and do the same thing on these toes. Now, you won't be able to see it as well from that angle, but I got to have it at this angle for a minute. So my apologies in advance. Now, we're going to come in here because I've got some clay sticking up. That's got to go back down. And pinch these out. Now, that looks pretty good. Now I do got to come in over here on this side, and we're going to use this tooling. No, I think I'll use, where's my little, there it is. We're going to use this one here. Because I kind of need to get some wrinkling of the skin right in there. See, because his body's bending back this way, and he'll get a little bit right in here. And there you are. Now we're going to go heat this guy up, and he'll be ready to go. I've got a base for him already. I'm going to put him on this green base. I was trying to figure out to paint something, but I think I'm just going to put him on this base. So, we're going to go fire him up, and we'll be back with you soon.